Voor onze volgende spreker gaan wij naar het Engels. Our next speaker will present in English. Lumera has been on our stage before. Today, Peter Roos will discuss the need for transparency and the focus on costs within DC contracts. And of course, we're all going to DC contracts in a couple of years. Please welcome Peter Roos.
Well, thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much, Pensioen Pro, for having me once again. Very proud and glad to be here again. And there's one force that's driving everything from this standpoint, and it's the participants. This was the topic of this conference, even the picture here, resemblance, I hope it's the participant with the crown over there.
Yes,
that's how I interpret it in a way. Yeah. So there's one thing I'm going to talk about today that are kind of important for participants over time. I'm going to come back to that. I represent Lumera. I work from Sweden. I'm the commercial Swedish guy, work towards several countries. And here with me today, I have my beloved new colleague, Jeroen Elbertser. So he's a managing director of Lumera Netherlands, and that's since the beginning of this year, actually. So we'll see if there's a question on that. We talk about that afterwards and so forth. So I will try to make this, explain this participant important stuff before we do that.
Please continue.
Thank you. So, I'm trying to place myself in a situation if there was 20 years ago in Scandinavia, or particularly in Sweden. And we're going to a reform like you guys are going through right now. What, if anything, should be the most important question that we will never lose track of? And the first one that came to mind is the cost. So it's several things that affect our pension, our retirement savings that we're going to live off for 1/3 of our lives. It's of course returns, it's choices done on the way, how much is paid in. But one thing is certainty. One thing we know now and we can affect now, and that's how much it costs to administrate it and how much it costs to distribute it and so forth. So that's why costs are so important to always keep track of with occupational pensions. So all in this room really have one single mission, and that is to make sure that the participants get the highest possible pension to live off. Anything else is besides the point. That's the only mission we all have. Even if we work with software, if we work with administration, whatever we do, that's the main thing here. And that goes through in all countries and all the Western world right now. It's regulations, it's reforms that go through pressuring price and pressuring costs on occupational pension. And I'll give you a few examples of that as well. So in a world where we move from defined benefit to defined contribution, there is no hiding anymore. So think about that for a moment. There's no chameleon to be had. So costs will be obvious. Everything will be transparent and everything will be scrutinized in the world. And the only mission we have at the end of the day is the highest possible pension for the participants. So that's the main forces behind the last 2 decades on the Scandinavian occupational pension market. And I'll give you a few examples and I'll try to explain how we can work with cost pressure over time. So we've been talking about the biggest force of them all, the demographic landscape. It's very, very similar all over Europe. More and more people are going to live off less and less work being done, simply put. You know all about the demographic effect. 1994 in Sweden, our prime minister made a change. He made a change to pillar 1, the bottom of the pyramid, you're well aware of this, to go from a point system to a pay-as-you-go system. And the reason for this is he saw where this were going, of course. He saw that, okay, oh my God, many retirees over there. Let's let's make a pay-as-you-go system instead, so we are sure that the money will suffice for those who should retire. Of course, the effect of that is lower pensions, right? So a lot of responsibility goes over to the employers instead. Oh, we have to pay more now because it's what's the defined benefit, and they still want to give the promise of 80% of end salary. Yeah, you know the deal. So cost for employers starts rising, and the employers in Scandinavia said, God damn it, the costs are too big, and we can't see what is what. What can we do about this? Let's leave the decision-making and the power and the responsibility over to the individual instead. Let's go for DC. So that's the way we're all walking, the path we're all taking all over Europe. We're just in different parts of that path. And here we are in the Netherlands. You're doing it sort of now, but you will do it rather quick, it looks like, instead. So we'll see. But the examples I was doing here is from the Scandinavian market. So I'm not telling anyone how it will be here. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can only say the experiences from the last 20 years in Scandinavia. So this is what happened in Scandinavia. As calculated, all the occupational pensions went down real bad, or not only occupational pensions, the state government pensions as well. So they've declined from about around 90% to around 50% right now. Actually, my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, opened her envelope for retirement last dinner I was there. And she screamed, 51% of my end salary. That's not what I was expected. Is this your fault, Peter? I said, no, it's not. It's not my fault. We're trying to do something about it, right? So she loves me even more now. No, but this is the development that we had, the responsibility, state, employers, individuals in the end. So, what happens? The main impact on a DB to DC shift, so to speak, is that the transparency. So all over this system right now, and it was that case in Sweden anyway, a lot of costs were being had from pension funds and life and pension companies at this time. And the costs were hidden, and they were sent as an invoice to employers, and it was like, good Lord, well, what can we do? Just pay. And we don't know what goes to premiums, retirements, and what goes to costs and everything. The day the shift comes, well, either the invoice goes to a participant, so I can see 1%, 2% fee. What does that do to affect my retirement? Or it goes to the employers. Okay, here's 2% fee. Is there anyone else who can do this cheaper? Right? So that's how pressure is building up for making changes. So through costs, and that's what happens. So some actors in the industry, I call it that. I've been saying this before. Are going to find these things. So back in 2005, I was very young, working in an investment bank in Sweden, starting to analyze the pension market. And then I'll do it like this instead. Sorry about that. Wrong order. Yeah, well. Okay. Is anyone interested in really knowing how these products are performing? So we made a system where we rated them all. These are clients of ours, so I wouldn't have their names up here, right? But and we sent this out in the newspapers every month. The new ratings of the equivalent of your solidarity product, this would be, right? So it's still very sort of untransparent, hard to see what is what, but then investment banks, intermediary firms, reporters will rate those products, building pressure for competition as well. So you really want to be every month on that side of this scope. You don't want to be on that side of this scope. And the main thing that affects this, of course, is cost, because that's the only thing we really can measure in this. So, going back a bit, yeah. So after the DC transition, about 17 years ago, somewhere like that, this kept happening. So if you're going to work towards lower costs, then you need scale. Scale, scale, scale. Very, very extremely important. So that the consolidation kept on moving all the way up until these days. So it more or less ended up with the oligopoly in Sweden, for example. And there's more actors, for example, in Denmark, but it's around 8 and 9 providers of occupational pension, simply put. So the consolidation just keep on moving, either from the DB fund sides going together, or from the DC actor side going together to reach volume, to reach low fees in a competitive environment. So, even so, the social partners and the regulators on the Scandinavian market, they couldn't get enough of this. So they said, there's too little competition in this area. We have to do something. So the regulation wasn't enough. So they did this. 2007, they said, okay, let's do a procurement of everything. So let's go from a fee of 90 base points down to a medium of 40 base points, or even 30 base points. And actually, large procurement in Sweden right now are free. So occupational pension and the fees you pay are free. So it's only the kickbacks from actual placements that provides profitability to life and pension companies. So it's becoming a more and more competitive setting. You can add to this the right for participants to move their capital. So let's say I've gathered capital for quite some time, and I pay 0 base points. Then I can take that and go to a new disruptive player instead, and pay 0 instead for that. So you can see that the step by step, adding competition, adding scrutiny, and adding competitiveness have those changes to the markets. And it's quite tough to be profitable if you can't charge the participants when fees are very, very pressured and low. Maybe I'm a bit over clear about this now. So, Scandinavia, very, very price pressures environment, putting pressure on life and pension providers to really keep costs low. At the same time, in UK, this is the 30th of January this year. So they have both DB, they have DC, they don't stop doing anything. They just go along with everything, making it highly complex and dynamic, of course, but also a bit complex and a bit rough to understand, really. This is a new thing. This is the Laura Trott, the pension minister in UK, saying, okay, DC firms, we try to add regulation, we try to add competition in the market, doesn't work. So if you don't comply to this, you will either have to improve, consolidate, or exit. That's it. If it doesn't go along with these features, then we'll have to do even harder legislation on the industry to make this happen. Costs go down. So, I've been talking about costs a lot. Why would I do that? It's a boring topic. Better to speak about asset management, speak about ESG, to speak about great ways of managing capital for immediate success and profit. I totally agree with that, and it's a very important factor, the asset management side of our industry. But it's one thing over time that we can really affect, that we decide over ourselves. And that is how efficient we administrate and how efficient we seek size to reach synergies to come down in cost. Because the cost will affect the participants' level of retirement in the end. So, I have 1 minute left or something like that. Yeah. So there's of course many ways to work with the costs. This is 4 of them. I would say it could have been the 4 most important ways of working towards low cost in our industry, and hence higher pension for participants. One of them is searching volumes, both in the asset management side of it and in the administration side of it. The second one is to keep it simple. Just to make a short example, what the social partners did in their procurement, they took away everything that was even slightly complex, just to go for lower cost of administration. So when we're creating new products, keep it simple, easy to administrate. Of course, I wouldn't be here otherwise. Modern software is key. If a process can be automated, it should be automated. And one final thing, very important. In a DC world, there's need for informed decisions. So there will be choices to make. Not many choices in the Dutch setting, but in a DC setting, there's still choices to be made. And when there's choices, there's responsibility to get it wrong. And there's an advisor market turning up. So I've been working in this industry since 2003. Most of those years, I've been a distributor of pension schemes, and as an intermediary and a business developer. And I know for sure that intermediaries really want to give employers and participants advice. Love the idea of personal meetings, but we are in 2023 right now. We should really be able to solve the informed decision part of this reform in a digital way. So I'll leave it at that, I think, right now. So,
okay. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
You've left time for one question. Is there anyone in the room that wants to ask over there a question? There's the box. Over there. Yes.
May I ask a question, or?
Yes, please, and state your name.
Peter Go from the SPMS, pension funds of the medical specialists. Do you also, you're talking about cost effective analysis. Do you also make cost-effective analysis for every rule that a supervisory body, external supervisory body, is staging? Because I don't think that is. Maybe you can even win more there if you pick your rules very good.
Yeah. So
it's all the regulators' fault.
Yeah, that's the regulation inflation I was talking about. Something happens, it's not enough to act with transparency and lower cost in the industry when they add more regulation and more regulation and more regulation until it happens. And while doing that, of course, to be compliant to those regulations, there's add cost to the industry. So that it can be a bit of, contradictory to add more rules, and then you have to comply, and that drives cost as well.
Maybe you should make a rule that they should do a cost-benefit analysis before they rule out a rule.
Yeah. I'm afraid Peter is not the. I'm afraid Peter is not the person to answer the question. But no. we have the AFM later today. Maybe we still have time for that question over there.
Great question, though.
Okay, thank you again, Peter.
Thank you.